Hi guys, Ron here and welcome to the workshop. Today I want to talk about my bike setup for flat road races. Why did I do that? Well, previously under my videos I got a couple of requests asking from lighter and smaller riders like myself mainly, that how can I keep with the big, tall, powerful riders on in these flat races, even getting a breakaway and in the top couple of positions. So of course training and power have a lot to do with that. If you have a comparable FTP to those bigger riders, then of course you're going to smash down the climbs and hang on the flats. That's sometimes not so easy to achieve, so you really need to work on your top end anaerobic and VO2 power. But today I want to talk about a bit more about the bike setup itself. So you already know my bike of choice for road racing, that's the Trek Madon, and it's one of the most aero frames that's out there. And even though I'm a lightweight rider, I don't really care about weight too much, although this is still a pretty light build. But when you're lightweight, it's much more important to go as aero as possible to minimize your disadvantages in terms of power. So you can't really increase your power, but you can always decrease your resistance, air resistance in this regard. So aero frame, although not necessary, but what it enables you to do is to get in a super low and long aero position. So I've already shown you my new cockpit setup here. You can see, I think even from the video, that the reach is quite long. It's a 140 stem after all, and there's a fair amount of drop. So you definitely don't want to be in an upright endurance position if you're chasing bigger riders on the flat. Then in terms of wheel selection, I've just done a flat race today and I've used the 7/8 inline road bike. Some people shy away from using really deep section rims from road racing, and rightly so, because the difference between a deep set and a mid-depth set isn't that big anymore in terms of drag, particularly at lower speeds. But with some not very refined options, you get quite a lot of side force and instability in the crosswinds. Now with the 7/8, this is not the case. They are superbly stable, rideable in any conditions really, even under 60 kilo rider. They're extremely stable, very well designed, very good braking. And you don't need to worry about the weight either, because with the MV carbon hubs, this set weighs basically the same as a Zip 303 clincher set. So this is really the ultimate deep section wheel for a light, or dare I say any kind of rider. If you can't go into this specific wheel set, then I think really you should shy away from very deep sets, because it's just not going to be worth it. Other things I should mention are the gearing and drivetrain. If you watch my channel, then you probably know that I have my drivetrain gains maxed up pretty much. Some of those upgrades aren't necessarily cheap, others are much more affordable, so a Vox chain is going to save you a lot in terms of power if you're on the flat or not. And the good thing is that it scales linearly with power, so no matter if you're hitting 100 watts or 1000, at 1000 you're going to have 10 times the savings. Also, what I do for flat races is I remove my front neck, install a nice and narrow chain catcher and a 1x ring. Now many manufacturers don't recommend this, including SRAM. They don't have a clutch for the E-tab group set yet, so you might get some chain rattle, so that's where you need a chain device. the ring, if you want to use one by, should have a narrow wide profile or a tall tooth profile in general, and then your chain safety is not a concern. But removing your front mag and your chain ring actually saves a considerable amount of drag. According to some sources, it saves more than going from a mid-depth wheel set to a full thumb travel wheel set or a very deep wheel set like this one. So that's another useful thing to have. And the gearing itself, I used a 54 tooth chain ring for my race. The average speed, if you discount the slow start, the ceremonial start, was 44 km per hour, and we never went below 33. So some people are scared of 1x setups because, well, they may lack the gear range. Well, that's just easy to solve with some information beforehand. If you've already ridden the course, you know probably have a guess what the slowest speed you're going to achieve is going to be like, and you can choose according to that. But today, with a 54 and an 1128, I was completely fine. As I said, we never went below 33 km per hour, and that's basically 54 with something like a third or fourth cog, even at a high cadence. So that's another setup thing that I have. Of course, then we can also talk about tires. In these fast flat races, I meant to say, I still use tires that are quite grippy. Many people wonder, well, I care a lot about these things, why don't I use the Corsa Speed, which is the fastest tire? Well, yes, it's the fastest tire, but it's not very grippy, and that's definitely not a thing you want in these races, because they can be quite chaotic and nervous, and the last thing you want to do is crash. So it's not really worth having those time trial tires, because you can flat easily and crash, which, yeah, it's just not worth those 5 to 10 watts of a gain, depending on your weight, of course. So the last thing I want to talk about, and it has to do with position. Even if you can adopt an extreme position in terms of flexibility, you still need a saddle to accommodate that, to actually be able to hold that and be comfortable, because, yeah, these fast races aren't going to be very long in terms of time, but still you're going to spend basically all the time in a narrow position, so you definitely need to be comfortable. I've just recently started using this Berk Dila saddle, which has a very wide nose, and it's designed specifically for aero positions. It works extremely well for me. Previously, I've used Dash Strike Line saddle, which is also excellent for extreme road positions, but there are more and more options in the market right now, like the SWX Power, the Pro Stealth, etc. So it's becoming quite the trend, and it just works. It really improves the ride. Okay, so these are the things that I do to tune up my bike for flat races. When there are circuits, I usually take off my second bottle cage as well, because then, well, basically if the circuit is 10 to 15 km long, my helper can just hand a fresh bottle whenever I need it. I don't need to have the extra drag, which can be quite a lot, caused by a second water bottle and its cage. Yeah, so this is pretty much how you can prepare your bike for a flat road race. No matter your weight actually, but these things definitely do help. And if you look at my Strava account, you can see that, well, I'm not managing to win the sprints just yet, because I don't have a team around me, but I can get pretty close to those top 10 spots most of the time. So yeah, it just works, I think. So I hope you have found these tips useful, and if you want to know about my other bikes and how those are set up for different kinds of racing, then don't forget to tune into the channel and subscribe. It's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.